And now for our reading. From Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Graham Smith and Jane Austen. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a zombie in possession of brains must be in want of more brains.
Get your bookmarks ready, you bookworm baddies. It's time for another episode of the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. We discuss books we've read, tell you about our upcoming programs, and throw a few guest speakers in for some flavor. This is Mallory, the cinnamon roll villain no one asked for, and I'm joined by my eldritch horror BFF, Ariel.
I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name.
We are recording our diary entries just for you here in our public library in Jackson County, West Virginia. As usual, Zach, our very own top secret agent with a soft spot for kittens, is sharing top secret transmissions from his super lair in Seattle.
The name is Long, Zach Long. And what's this? I'm getting a message here with some kitties. Oh, they're so cute little kitties. Aww.
Our Supreme Overlord Carla is on the run from a past so terrifying she couldn't join us again today, so be sure to tune in next week for the thrilling end to her absence. Today we are doing a book chat, so we're just gonna hop right into it.
Yeah.
Who's first?
I think we should all talk about lore since we've all read it and we can start off our chat.
That's a good one.
Okay, so we have all read Lore by Alexandra Bracken.
Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I really liked it.
This was our book club pick this month, so. It is a book about, was it Greek gods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sort of.
Yeah.
Essentially, there's like the Greek gods, but if you kill them, you get their power.
Yeah.
And there's a hunt that happens every 7 years, and it lasts, was it a week?
1 week.
It lasts a week, yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. I listened to this book. I finished it in 2.5 days, which is a lot considering, or not a lot considering how busy I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like the ending literally gave me chills.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Here, I have the book summary here.
Oh my God.
Every 7 years, the Aegon begins. As a punishment for a past rebellion, 9 Greek gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals, hunted by the descendants of their ancient bloodlines, all eager to kill a god and seize their divine power and immortality. There's more, but I don't want to do that. That's the basic premise. You got a main character. She's like the last of her line.
Her bloodline, yeah.
Her bloodline, yeah. And yeah, it's basically about her and her BFF from when she was a kid.
Yeah. And the new BFF.
And a new BFF, who is fantastic. And he's
I
fun.
loved him. He was such a great character.
Overall, I thought this book was fantastic. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I don't know why it's got such low ratings on Goodreads. People on Goodreads don't know what good books are. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. I think it's mostly, honestly, book talk people.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it probably is. I don't think it was always like that, but
I hate that because so many books from book talk I've read, I'm like, this is trash.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I read this?
I don't understand.
I'd say about 85% of them are.
Yeah. I read this one actually like maybe 2 years ago. I've read it twice now. And originally, so the cover, none of you can see it, but it is Medusa on the cover. And so I thought it was about Medusa. And it was not, so I was very angry about it. So I only gave it 4 stars. I liked it, the story otherwise. So whenever that was picked for book club, I told everybody, please do not expect Medusa and you'll be happy. And so whenever I read it this time around again, I was definitely very happy with it. And I even upped my rating for it.
Now, I do want to say that isn't the shield that she gets, the Aegis or whatever, that has Medusa's face on it.
Yeah.
So there is some like Medusa-esque story in there.
Yeah.
But that's not the main thing. It's not what it's about. She just happens to be in there. And she's mentioned a few times. So I think that's why they went with that cover, but
misleading. I was mad about it.
I don't know. It was like Medusa as like, I don't know. Yes, not a character in there, but is the main component of the shield.
Yeah,
they talk about the shield the entire book. It's what's the word?
The Aegis.
The MacGuffin. It's the MacGuffin of the story, almost.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about what they call it in the story.
Oh, no, they call it the Aegis, or the Aegis.
Aegis.
Aegis, yeah.
Well, I think they're just pronouncing it wrong. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Aegis.
Well, through the whole book, they called it ageist.
Well, they're wrong.
They're also
wrong.
American.
Anyway, good book. Good book. Read it.
It was a
It was a
very,
good book.
very good book, and I suggest people read it.
It's a nice little conceit. You know, you have the gods getting their powers taken every time they are killed, and you keep having that happen over and over and over again. And there's only like, at the beginning of the book, there are like 4, I think, or 3 of the original gods. There's
4, yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they kill a lot of them off. Pretty fun, though. My favorite Greek god is in there, and he's kind of not very nice, unfortunately.
Dionysus?
Obviously. Dionysus is the best. I relate to him.
AKA Jack Black.
Yeah.
He did sound like Jack
so
Black.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect. They need to make a movie.
That would be fantastic, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go next with a book?
Yeah, I will do Keeper of Enchanted Rooms because I don't think you
I haven't read that
either.
one.
So
No.
I read this one for an online book club I am in, Stronger Spine Book Club. And it was June's? No, it was May's book. I just am behind with him currently. It's by Charlie N. Holmberg, and it was a pretty nice little book. So it's like magical, and also it takes place in the 1800s. This writer inherits a house from his grandmother, but he has been disowned. So taken out of everybody's wills, wasn't expecting anything, and he gets this call that he has inherited his grandmother's house that he didn't know about, he's never been to in his life. And so he moves there, and the house essentially traps him, doesn't want him to leave, and is terrifying him. And so there's this magical house, I guess like secret agency, what you would call it. And they have people who go and take care of enchanted houses. So they're called the Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. And she goes to try and tame the house. And so there's a whole big backstory that goes with her and with him and the villain. The villain in this story is top tier. Like, wow. That was my my rating was just what a villain. He was terrifying, unhinged, and absolutely one of those villains that you definitely hate. And you love hating them. Written for me, great. I love a good villain that you don't identify with or root for, because I don't do that very often.
Yeah.
I am a villain sympathizer, but this one, definitely not. It was super cute. There's also like a little bit of a romance thing that happens in there, but it's definitely not the forefront. It's about family roots, finding out new family, finding friends, and also some ghosty stuff. It's just a really good overall story. I definitely gave it 5 stars. And yeah, I loved it. It was great. Highly recommend it.
Cool. It sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, you got a book? Oh my lord, is this a thing this time?
I don't know. This morning I just got like crud in my throat. It's going to come through great on the podcast. Gives me that nice radio voice. Let's see here. I guess, yeah, the first one I'm going to go over is just Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, which is based, well, I think it's based on the podcast, but the podcast is based on a YouTube show. Anyway, this it's a book, nonfiction, about conspiracy theories and things like that, and basically where they come from, why they happen, etc., etc. I read it, honestly, because it was a book club book for one of my work book clubs, the nonfiction book club, but it's also very helpful for next week's episode when I'm talking about conspiracy theories and focusing probably on the Illuminati. But it was a good book. It was talking about how basically conspiracy theories obviously happen all the time, and it was talking about why they happen specifically. For example, there's stuff like, we had a bunch of conspiracy theories going around about, well, let's just say like the Illuminati, for example. No, I don't want to spoil that one. We're going to skip that one. About aliens, for example, right? Tons of conspiracy theories happening about aliens and them being covered up and stuff like that. But
we've talked about aliens too much. Just so you're aware, I had a nightmare about aliens last night. Okay,
She told me.
Well, okay, so this one's like, why are there so many conspiracy theories about aliens? Why people think that there's like, you know, the government's covering stuff up all the time. And I mean, let's be honest, it's because they did cover stuff up previously, and they did a really, really bad job. They just did not care about what people actually thought stuff was. So they sort of encouraged the alien stuff, right? So that's the reason why we're getting more like, you know, alien conspiracy stuff, because they did it. They've done it before. They've done it tons of times. Roswell obviously was a big one. They have literally intentionally misled and leaked fake documents to UFO researchers to discredit them more and make it seem like it's all just nonsense. I mean, they've done this stuff before. I mean, it is all just nonsense, but they do also cover up stuff. Roswell was like a balloon, right? It was just a large balloon that we didn't want the Russians to know that we were making, that was used for spying. So they just said, oh, it was a balloon. Oh, but it was something else. Oh, but it was something else. Oh, but it was something else. And they changed their story like 3 or 4 times, and people were, I mean, that's where conspiracy theories start. You know, stuff like that. Or the government's done awful stuff with medicine before. They've experimented on people without telling them, like with chemtrails, right? Chemtrails, not real. I'm just going to preface this. Chemtrails are not real.
You are so lucky. So lucky. Our mom is not here.
I know. Mama, chemtrails are not real. However, the government has done this several times beforehand where they just release stuff. It's usually either stuff that's phosphorescent or stuff that is a very specific kind of bacteria so that they can track exactly where it goes in different places. So they'll like put stuff in the water supply, they'll just release it from high altitude with planes and track where it goes. That's essentially what they do.
Why can't they do this with like, I don't know, like dye?
They have done it with dye.
To release it in the water, just track where that goes. Or release it from a plane, like suddenly you're just covered in little blue freckles.
They don't do it with dye like that. No, because they didn't want people to know. That's the whole point. They did these they did the experiments on people, and they didn't tell people.
Well, see, I mean, but if they did that, that's just more conspiracy theories. Like,
no, but that's the thing. That's the whole point about this stuff.
People sick and gives them blue freckles.
Yeah, that's the whole point. People believe conspiracies a lot of the times because we did stupid stuff like that beforehand. So the conspiracy, it's like there are valid conspiracies that happen. The issue is we have documentation on almost all of those, and people just know about them now.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a very good book. I suggest people should read it because I greatly enjoyed it. And if you haven't listened to the podcast is really good too. Listen to our podcast first, though, and tell everybody about this podcast first. Then you can listen to that one.
Because we're better.
Yep.
Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about today is Hex by Thomas Old Heuvelt, maybe?
Yeah.
Heuvelt?
How do you spell it?
Heuvelt. Heuvelt.
Sounds great. I love it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so this book I just finished recently. It's been on my TBR for a while. I apologize ahead of time if I suck at explaining this. As we all know, I'm not good at that. But this is a creepy thriller horror type book. It's about this town called Black Spring that has a curse on it. It's had a curse on it for like 300 years. Back in the 1800s, they accused this woman named Catherine of bringing her son back from the dead. So they forced her to kill her son. And then, because if she didn't kill her son, they were going to kill her daughter.
Of course.
And after she kills her son, they throw her in what is called a witch's pit.
Oh.
And, just kill her. And it never says that they killed her daughter, but you kind of assume that they also killed her daughter later on. So she's been hanging around this town. And if you listen to her whispering, you commit suicide. If you touch her, you commit suicide. And she wanders around this town and she follows the same kind of pattern and stuff like that. But every now and then she'll deviate from that pattern. She just comes into your house and hangs out there. She walks through the street. I mean, she goes everywhere. And the town has just learned to live with her, essentially, There was a few instances back in this book takes place in present day. So back in the 60s, they decided they wanted to experiment and see what, is causing this and whatnot. Stupid, right? So when she is in distress of some sort, she sends out what they assume is some kind of psychic energy or impulse or something like that. And anyone who is not in the greatest health or something like that has a stroke, has a heart attack, has an aneurysm, and drops dead.
Yikes.
Right? Well, at one point, they somehow managed to wrap her in chains, sew her eyes and her mouth shut. Then later, someone decides, we're going to cut the threads of her mouth.
These people must be white.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Anyways, and army people and scientists.
Still white, I bet.
Okay.
Top tier money.
So they go to cut one thread in her mouth, right? All of a sudden, you kind of feel like there's like a shift in the vibes there. And the doctor ends up like stabbing himself in the eye repeatedly. The other people in that room end up killing themselves. And I think 60 other people in the town drop dead.
Deserved it. I mean,
right?
not the people,
in the town,
not the townspeople, but I mean.
So like, you don't mess with the witch. That's what they call her. They call her the witch. She's kind of like a ghost / witch. So she roams the town. People put up with it. When someone new is coming to move into the town, the townspeople make it their mission to convince these people not to move there. Because once you move into this town, you cannot leave.
Yeah.
If you are born in this town, you cannot leave. You can take like a weekend trip. But if you go for longer than that, you start getting suicidal thoughts to the point that you may actually commit suicide because you're not in the town. It's crazy. Crazy book. So good. There is a main character, and then there is also a group of people who their job is to watch Catherine to keep the town updated on what happens and all this stuff. And they're called Hex. That's why the book's called Hex. The main character is friends with the people in Hex. So he's kind of influences stuff, you know, he helps decide things. But they don't let anybody outside of the town know about this witch. The government doesn't really know about it. They don't call the cops in. They handle everything within town. And if you break some of the rules for the emergency decree, you get sent to what's called Doodletown. So that's a town outside of Black Spring where you are held and they watch you vigilantly to make sure you don't commit suicide. But they like keep you there for like 3 weeks. So it's like essentially torturing them.
Oof.
And this isn't even all the story. This is just like a very little chunk of what's happening. So I'm not giving anything major away. But everything kind of hits the fan and everything goes really bad when the main character's son commits suicide. And then everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
Like, cause he doesn't handle the fact that his son committed suicide very well. He's like distraught, not thinking things through, does some things he shouldn't do. And everything hits the fan. And the ending of this book, my mouth dropped open when I heard the ending because I was like, oh my God, that is messed up.
Yeah.
So obviously I thought it was fantastic because I like weird, creepy books like this. So yes, definitely read it if you're into that kind of thing.
Oof. Yeah, I know the ending. She told me, she was like, I know you're not going to read it, which correct. But yeah, wow. When I say yes, she's definitely right there. So my next book, I finally read. I've had this in my Audible library for probably 4 years, and I finally decided to listen to it. I've been in like a weird book funk where none of my TBR sounds right, so I'm just like picking stuff at random. So this one is How to Defeat a Demon King in 10 Easy Steps by Andrew Rowe. And this was so much fun. It was a super fast read. It was kind of like RPG-esque.
Yeah, when I read it, it gave me like D&D kind of vibes.
And so the main character is, I guess she's a human, and there's like a demon king that rises every 100 years. And he tries to take over the world. And a hero comes to defeat the demon king, and then it just restarts the cycle. It's only been 23 years since the Demon King rose, but he's already got like 75% of the world taken over. And so this girl is basically like, I'm not waiting for a hero. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to pick my skills. And the skills that she makes are kind of out there. Whenever she gets them, you're like, what? And then by the end of the story, you're like, what a masterful plan this child has. Well, I don't know. I can't remember actually how old she is.
She's like a young adult.
Did you say she picks her skills? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
So it's like in D&D, like, you know, you level up your class, like your class.
You read
skill.
a lit RPG, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
it's really
nice.
good. Really, really fun. And actually, he has more books like that. I haven't gotten to them yet, but they sound really fun. This one was absolutely fantastic. I had so much fun listening to it. She meets some people along the way to add them to her party, essentially. Her main party member is just the sweetest. I love him. And everyone that they meet along the way is top tier. It is a great story. And honestly, if I could play an RPG like that, I think it would be really fun.
Oh, it was great. It was a great read. So I fully recommend this one also. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, she read this one quite a while ago.
It's been a couple of years.
And I'm pretty sure that I put it in my Audible whenever you read it.
Probably, because I was like, it's so good.
Yeah. I completely forgot about it. But yeah, I finally got to it. And wow, I wish I hadn't taken so long. It's so fun. I'm definitely going to read more of his books.
What's the guy's name again?
Andrew Rowe, R-O-W.
Oh, okay. I feel like I've read one of Andrew Rowe's books before. Another good one is Dakota Kraut. He's pretty good. Also, the Wandering Inn series is really good, apparently. I haven't read that one, but my friend who only reads lit RPGs because, I don't know, he needs to read other books, but he doesn't. He says it's really good, so.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you have any more to read or talk about, Zach?
Oh, yeah, I've got other books. So, let me think here. The one that I think would be good to talk about is... Okay, so The Mountains Sing is the one I finished up most recently. It's by somebody whose name is Vietnamese. We're going to attempt it. You ready?
I can't wait.
Nguyen Phan K Mai. Maybe.
That didn't sound too bad.
Well, you got to see the letters, and then you'll see why I was hesitant.
I'm sure.
Anyway, whatever her name is, it's got incredibly high ratings on Goodreads. I don't know why it does. It's a decent book, but it's like fairly well written. There's I've got some issues with it, but the basic premise is you've got a grandmother and her granddaughter. It's talking about their lives. One, the granddaughter, current time is happening during the Vietnam War, right? And the other one, the grandma, it's back in the past, back when they were doing land reform stuff, right? So, I mean, as a nice little historical fiction type thing, it's good. It gives you a lot of information about what it was like back then. The issue that I had with it is that it felt a lot like misery porn. Everything bad happened to these people. But then right after that, something really good would happen. For example, at one point, the grandma back in the past gets robbed. And then a few weeks later, she's got a job. She basically almost immediately gets a job after getting robbed. And then she does something. I'm not going to spoil it. And then she gets a bunch more money from jewels and stuff because she helps somebody out. And it's just that goes back and forth, back and forth. These people go from poor to wealthy 1,600 times in this book. It's crazy unrealistic. It seems both pro and anti-capitalist at the same time. I don't know. I was not a big fan of this book. But, I mean, I guess if you want to read about... It's, good if you want to just know more about the Vietnam War and, the land reform stuff. It gives you good information about that, and it's a kind of a neat story. It felt incredibly unrealistic, though, just because of how often something awful, then something great happened to these people. And I don't like this aggrandizing thing of, if you just work hard, you'll do great, and you'll, become wealthy again or whatever, because it's just not true. I mean, it's not even true in the same book. It's only if you are these people does that happen to. So if you are this grandma, man, you just every single time you go broke, you got nothing, you become rich again, broke, rich, broke, rich, broke, rich. It's kind of silly, but I don't know.
Sounds really stressful.
It really does.
It was a difficult book to take seriously after a while. I think the main reason it's rated so high is that she's a brand new author, and this is her first. Well, I don't think she's a brand new author. She's a Vietnamese poet, but this is the first English novel, and she wrote it. Oh, there was also one other thing that just drove me insane. So sometimes they will speak Vietnamese in the book, but it's only for when they're talking about parables. The issue is that it would be a person actually saying the parable in Vietnamese, even though in the rest of the book they speak. It's not, it's not English, but it's written in English, so obviously it's all in English. So they'll say the parable, and then they'll say the same thing again in English right afterwards. And it's the person talking is doing that, which doesn't make sense in the context of the story.
That's fair.
It's just goofy. I don't know. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. It was not poorly written or anything. It was just not great. So, it was fine.
Okay, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is called Nimona, and it's by N.D. Stevenson. I gave this book 3 stars, which is a big deal, right?
That's pretty bad for you. That's really bad for you.
It is really bad for me. I did not enjoy this book at all. Now, it is a graphic novel, and I just listened to it. I didn't do the graphic novel thing because I didn't have time. But it is about a villain and a hero, right? They used to both be knights, but the villain got blamed for something and got discredited, so he ended up being a villain. Well, this girl named Nimona shows up, and she's a shapeshifter, and she's like, I want to be your apprentice to the villain, you know? And she's all like, we can do this. And he's still good at heart. He's like, we can't do this because this is going to hurt this many people. We can't do that. And she's like, burn them all. You know, she's like, let's go hard. Let's make a name for ourselves. And through the whole book, he's fighting with her on that. He's like, no, we can't do this. And she's like, yes, we can. I don't know. I didn't like it at all. It is a movie now on Netflix. And Eugene Lang from the Try Guys.
Stop that.
He voices someone in it, so I'm going to watch the movie, and I really do think it is
it
better.
Animated?
Yeah, it's an animated movie. I think it's going to be so much better as a movie as opposed to a book. Something about it it just didn't work for me. I didn't like it. I don't even think reading it as a graphic novel, I would have liked it better.
Yeah.
Because I did not like the storyline. I didn't like Nimona. I was like, she is a nuisance and a pain and the worst. And you find out in the book that the hero is not as righteous as he makes himself out to be. But he works for like in DC Comics or whatever, there's the heroes, but then there's that lady that they also work for, like the lady who puts together Suicide Squad.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. I can't remember her name. It's similar to that kind of vibe, you know? So you obviously hate her.
Yeah.
She sucks. But I don't know. It was not a good book for me. Other people might like it. My review was, it was just meh. So, I just didn't really like it. But I thought, that's something that somebody might like, and they might want to watch the movie too. So.
Yeah.
I
hate when that happens, though.
Yeah, I was really excited about it.
I don't like that her name sounds like she's a sickness.
You know what it makes me think of?
Pneumonia, almost.
No, My Sharona, that song.
Oh my god. My Nimona.
You're welcome. Yeah. My Nimona.
That's awful. Cut this part out too. This is awful.
No!
I'm sorry. Okay, my brain does weird things. I'm not in charge of it. Okay, so my next book is actually the end of a trilogy that I have been in love with and absolutely obsessed with since I read the first one. The first one was called The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, which is about women pirates, and pirate ships are actually houses that can fly with magic. So it's amazing, fantastic.
They are great.
Hilarious. And so the Secret Service of Tea and Treason is about the third male character that you're introduced to in the second book. So in the first book, you're introduced to one guy pirate, Ned Lightbourne.
I love him.
And then at the very end, you meet his friend, Alex O'Reilly.
Who I also
love. Okay. And so then in the second book, it is about Alex O'Reilly. And, like Ned is still in there, but then you meet Alex's butler, Bixby.
I think he might be my favorite.
I don't know who is my favorite. If I had to pick, I don't think I could. I love them. Alex.
I love them all. I love Ned. I love Alex.
Yeah.
But I also love Bixby. I love them all, and who they end up with is perfect for each of them.
Yeah. So they're rom-coms, and that's not usually what I'm into. I really am not a romance person. I think it's dumb. I think it's really cheesy, but these are hilarious. Like, everything is absolutely hilarious. All of the quips, all of the wit, the pirate women are hysterical. I want to be in the Wisteria Society.
Yeah.
And then the second book is about witches who are the nemesis of the pirates because they also use the same magic that came from their original
lady.
Their matriarch or whatever. And so they use magic differently. So obviously they both hate each other, whatever. So the third one is about the Secret Service that Bixby is actually in. And yikes, I don't know. I absolutely loved this. each book is obviously about the woman, but you get to know the man as well. And so it's a really nice balance. It's not overtly feminine. It's not overtly masculine. There's action, there's adventure, there's romance, there's definitely humor.
There's some tension.
Yes, a lot. And it does get a little bit spicy. I must tell people.
Is on the scale of spiciness, I would say it's a jalapeno at most.
Yeah. It's but just in case, I feel like I should tell people that I'm not big into spice.
Yeah,
so
me either.
I don't know. I
But
just
these
don't
are
like
fantastic.
reading it. Yeah, they're super well written. So that's my biggest ick about romance novels is how they're written. Like I hate the verbiage. Please stop. And so these great. They're written great.
All right, Zach, your turn.
Yeah, I think my next one's going to have to be, what would it be? Caliban's War and Abaddon's Gate. I'm just going to go with both of those. They're both chunks of the Expanse series. So if you've never read The Expanse, the first one is called Leviathan Wake. It's one of the best modern sci-fi books I've read. It's fairly hard sci-fi, so they actually have, it's mostly hard sci-fi. They have good explanations for why all of the different aspects work, but basically it's about, you've got this crew who has a ship called the Rocinante, and they go on all kinds of fun adventures. Most of it's dealing with this thing called the proto-molecule, which is like alien technology. You learn about this in the first book, and it can do things that don't make any sense. Like it can change the laws of physics to some degree. It can infect humans and turn them into different things. It can do all kinds of weird stuff, and everybody's trying to use it in the first book and in the second book as well. It's a wild ride. It's a very fun book, though. It's like incredibly well written. All the characters are fantastic, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether I would say you should read the books or watch the show first. It is a show on, I think it's Amazon Prime. I don't remember. Just Google The Expanse show and it'll come up. But overall, it's a fantastic little series. I enjoyed it a lot, and it's kind of crazy. All the stuff that happens in it, you know. And I'm going to finish up the whole series. I think there's 7 books in it so far, but it's taking a while. They're not thin books. They're like 400-ish pages each, so it's taking a while.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they're pretty good, though. What do you mean it doesn't surprise you?
You picked the longest books.
I do pick some long books sometimes, but oh well, you know. They're good books, though.
It's mostly sometimes.
Mostly sometimes. That's all I get, I swear. The disrespect.
We calls them like we sees them.
Listen, I'm still holding a grudge from Fairy Tale in February.
Shortest month, and he picks the longest freaking book.
Yeah, I do. We get up. So just for context, we're in a book club together, and the different people in the book club get to pick a book every month, and I picked Fairy Tale for the first time, and they were all upset because they're like, it's too long. And I'm like, but it's good, though.
It was good.
It was good, but it was long.
It was a very long book. I'm not going to lie. It was long.
It was like 30 hours or something?
It was a lot. It was up there.
Really. Oof.
Okay, before we get into book news, I want to talk about Chase's poetry book real quick because we're going to have him on.
Yeah.
So. Okay, the last book that I'm mentioning is The Positive Side of Negative Thoughts, and it's wrote by W.C. Robertson. And we will be having him on later in July to talk about his 2 poetry books that he has wrote, and also the novel that he is in the process of writing. He has gave me the first draft to read, and I'm going to share it with everybody so we can all read it and discuss, his writing process and what we think of his novel, but without giving too much away. Now, I do want to say that his poetry book, the one that I've read, The Positive Side of Negative Thoughts, is so good. I don't know how he can write poetry about things that he's never experienced and still get so much feeling out of them. Like, he's a man. He's never personally experienced a miscarriage. He wrote a poem about a miscarriage. It made me cry. It was so good. He does so well with his words. One of my absolute favorite poems in there is called Constellations.
Oh, yeah.
It has a couple lines in there that I'm like, I feel this so hard. I love it. I wish someone would say this to me.
Yep.
Like, it's fantastic. So I'm very excited to have him on later. I have known Chase for 12 or 13 years now. So I was very excited to get back in touch with him and figure out that he had actually published a couple of books. So that's very exciting. Do we want to go ahead and get into book news now?
Yeah.
All right, so book news. Again, because we do this at a 3-week difference from when we record it to when we release it. This is all going to be old news. But the Locus Awards came out last week, which is basically, it's a nonprofit thing designed to promote and preserve sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. They publish a magazine every year, and they publish a magazine all the time, but they also just do the book awards every year for the best in class for a bunch of different genres. So they've got sci-fi, fantasy, horror, young adult, first novel, novella, novelette. I didn't know novelette was a thing, by the way. Short story, and anthology, and collection.
Is that smaller than like a novella?
Yeah, I think so. A novelette. I don't know exactly what the difference is between novella and novelette. Well, while I'm reading these off, you guys can look that up. Okay, so I'm busy
looking at the awards. I'm not looking it up.
Oh, okay, fine then. Be that way. We'll look that up later. Yeah. So I don't know if I agree with all these, but I don't get to pick them. So sci-fi novel. This is one I've been wanting to read, the Kaiju Preservation Society, just because I love kaiju personally. Kaiju are great. If you haven't seen Pacific Rim, fantastic movie. What happened?
I was looking at the awards, and the horror novel that won is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Yeah. And I love that author, and I've read that book, so that was exciting for me. And I did a little dance.
She had a party over here.
Fantasy novel was Babel, which I haven't read, but it's been recommended a ton of times. I don't actually... Nona the Ninth I've heard of, not Nettle and Bone, When Women Were Dragons. I've been wanting to read a bunch of these books, but apparently Babel is...
I want to read...
I did not buy Nettle and Bone when I was with you.
I think you did.
Yeah. Hey, the Golden Enclaves! Naomi Novik! Yeah. Oh man, that's such a good series.
Rebecca Roanhorse with Fevered Star. I think she did Black Sun. I read Black Sun. It was fine. Yeah, and horror novel, it's What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I haven't heard of any of these other books.
Well, they have Echo by Thomas Huvelt, which I think is it's not. He wrote the Hex.
Yeah, he wrote Hex.
It's not part of that, but it's on my list to read, and I've heard it's really, really good. So that's kind of exciting.
Isn't that it's got the same style of cover, doesn't it?
It does, but I looked it up, and it's not
related.
Like no,
a separate sort of
by him is like the second of the Hex one.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, What Moves the Dead, I don't know. I feel like that shouldn't have won. It was a good book, but it wasn't that good. I don't know. Personally,
it was creepy.
It was creepy, but it was like, I don't know. Maybe these other books aren't very good either. Okay, young adult novel.
I haven't read any of them.
Young adult novel was Dreams Bigger Than Heartbreak by Charlie Jane Anders. I've heard of Charlie Jane Anders. I have not heard of this book, though.
I haven't heard of any of these.
I haven't either, actually. And I read a decent chunk of YA.
Yeah.
Same. And I haven't.
I don't know.
Any of them.
I still need to read
First
Legends
novel.
and Lattes.
I want to read that one too.
Yeah, first novel, The Mountain and the Sea by Ray Naylor. Haven't read that one. I did read Legends and Lattes, which is one of the nominations. I heard The Bone Orchard was good. Bone Orchard.
Yeah, that's on my list.
Yeah, so I don't know why that says cryptids. Legends and Lattes doesn't have cryptids in it. What's that? Oh, no, this is a publisher. And Tor? Cryptid and Tor? Okay. But anyway, yeah, Legends and Lattes was a good book. It was very chill. I could see why it wouldn't win this thing, but it's good. Novella, we've got A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. Oh my god. Becky Chambers. What did she write? That name sounds so familiar.
Let me look.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she did A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is one I've been wanting to read. I was like, that name sounds so familiar. Yeah, so she's apparently, by all accounts, a fantastic author. I have not read any Becky Chambers, but she's apparently very good. The rest of these, never heard of.
I figured out what the difference between a novella and a novelette is.
What?
It says novelettes have a lower number of words than a novel or novella, but a higher word count than other forms of prose fiction like short stories or microfiction.
So it's just a
shorter
novella.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, whatever. It's a long short story or a short novella, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't like the distinctions between all these things. I think they're silly.
It says anything between 10,000 and 20,000 words.
Huh, interesting. Well, speaking of the novelette, the winner is If You Find Yourself Speaking to God, Address God with the Informal You by John Chu.
Are we sure that's not a Fall Out Boy song?
It kind of sounds like
A Fallout voice. Wow. It sounds goofy. I kind of like the name.
Yeah.
I don't know of any of these other ones. I've never seen them, but I also just don't ever look at novelettes, I guess.
Yeah, I don't look them up to read.
I like
every
them.
now and then I'll find them
Mhm.
and I'll read one, but I don't look them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. The only novelettes I've read recently, if you can call them that. Actually, I don't even think they would because I don't think they have enough words. Is the Dumb Birds of North America and the Dumb Birds of the Whole World or whatever. Speaking of, I met that author a week or two ago. It was fantastic. He's pretty cool.
Did
He's
you
having a
invite
book.
them to the podcast?
I'm sending him an email. I can't invite him. Okay, so they record a podcast, and that's what I'm going to as a podcast recording. So I can't just go up there and say, hey, you want to be on my podcast too? At their podcast thing?
can.
Yes,
I'm just
you
going to send them
can.
an email and say, like, listen, I saw you at this thing. I'll give you guys follow-up later. And then we'll just do a couple more here because there's a bunch, but I don't want to do all of them. Short story, Rabbit Test by Samantha Mills. Never heard of that.
Nope.
But again, these are short stories. I don't think we're going to have seen these. The anthology, Africa Risen, a new era of speculative fiction. I do like anthologies a lot.
I don't.
I do
I think I
sometimes.
have-
It really depends for me.
I mean, that's fair. They've got the other ones are like The Way Spring Arrives, the best science fiction, the best American science fiction of fantasy, etc., etc., etc. They're all names like that for the most part. But I like some of the short stories in them. And then a collection, Boys, Beasts, and Men by Sam J. Miller. I did not do the anthology authors because there's like 50 of them. So,
Yeah.
but this one is one person.
Go down to nonfiction.
Okay, we're gonna talk about nonfiction.
Because nobody
real quick.
cares about artist, editor, publisher. We don't care about that.
Nonfiction, Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes, the official biography by Rob
I'm
Wilkins.
so happy about that.
I have been wanting to read that, actually. I
Yeah.
tried to nominate for our nonfiction book club a few times, and nobody's actually taken it up. Oh, well.
They're done. They're done.
I know, right? Terry Pratchett, for those of you who don't know, Terry Pratchett, one of the greatest authors of all time. He's my
Mhm.
favorite by
He is
far. It's not even close.
Fantastic.
He's written tons of books. He's an amazing storyteller, and he's like, I don't know, very progressive with his views and stuff. It's great. I love him.
Well, you can pick it for our book club.
I could, but I'm not going to.
Rude.
He picked
Another long book.
the nom nom nom. Yeah, necromancer.
Oh, yeah.
I, what?
Like, what?
I didn't pick that, did I? No, I picked
Neuromancer.
Neuromancer, not Necromancer.
Yeah, that's it.
No.
Well, that's only 300
Nom, nom,
pages,
nom.
thank you. It's only 300
That's what
pages.
I thought of when I read the title. I was like, nom 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 nom.
Well, it's bad. I was gonna pick Snow Crash, but you guys keep at me, so that's 500 pages.
Better put a 5 in the jar.
Anyway, so that's all the ones I wanted to go over. It's kind of fun. I like reading these books. They've got some good recommendations if you read through the different Locus Awards. You got this, you got the Nebula Awards. Although I think the Nebula, I'm not as big of a fan of. I feel like they don't pick as good of books as the Locus Awards, but yeah, that's book news.
All right.
That was a good deal. Next week, we're highlighting Zach's secret societies, conspiracies, and probably focusing on the Illuminati. We're not going to maybe commit to that fully in case you change your mind, but we will then... What are we doing next?
I really think we're doing Carla's deep dive, but I could not even begin to tell you what that is.
Yeah, me either.
Probably something
We're good
nonsensical. Oh, is it fiction or is it nonfiction?
No, I think it's a fiction, and I think it's short.
Oh.
Okay,
But
okay.
I can't remember what it is.
I think
I'm
you're
fine
right.
with that. I just heard
yeah.
nonfictions are not going to be nonfiction.
Shots fired. She's not even here to defend herself.
Good.
Okay. So then we want to take a second before we really get out of here to give a shout out to Judy, one of our listeners who gave us a review. And also, I think we've already given her a shout out, but she is also going to be on soon. And so that's Ange. She has also given us a rating on, are both of them on Audible?
I don't know. I know Ange is on Audible. I don't know what Judy's is on.
But yeah, we want to give you guys a shout out. Thank you so much for listening and reviewing us. That gives us a better chance of being seen. And so we can get new people to join the madness. And that's really all we want because we're fun.
Yep. The funnest of times.
Yes. So I think that'll wrap us up. And so thank you for joining another episode of the Reading Room Ruffians. You can find our Facebook group by searching Reading Room Ruffians Podcast, which is linked to our library's Facebook page at facebook.com/Jackson County Library WV. Our Ravenswood branch recently launched their own Facebook page, so all Ravenswood things can be found by searching Ravenswood Branch-Jackson County Public Libraries. You should also definitely follow us on TikTok and Instagram at WVJCO Library and give our podcast Goodreads page a look-see, which we have linked in our episode description along with our personal Goodreads pages. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and just to make sure you remember, only the best libraries have librarians who won't shush you. And we are also definitely not plotting for world domination. That's silly. Why would you even consider that?